Basically, here's what Elon Musk said. You can consider these words the epigraph to our video today. I quote, "By 2036, in 10 years, money will lose its meaning. Why do you need money? You need money for goods and services, food and housing, transport, entertainment. If robots and artificial intelligence produce more goods and services than any human can consume, then why do we need money?" The naivety of Elon Musk is just off the charts. He lost track of money and what it's for a long time ago. So let's talk about that today. Let's talk about basic income and the communism that Elon Musk predicts. The society of tomorrow where you won't have to work. Actually, you already don't have to. Just look at modern America, Elon. I'll give you some figures in a bit, and we'll see that a society where almost no one needs to work is quite realistic. But there won't be any socialism, let alone communism. On the contrary, it's the purest, most refined capitalism. And that's a completely different concept of building a social system. It will be a network society. I briefly talked about this once. Well, now we're returning to the topic. Let me remind you of what I said. We know what happened to the planet over the last, say, 100 or 200 years. From agricultural civilization moved first to the industrial stage, that is the Industrial Revolution. Then in the most developed countries to the post-industrial, that is otherwise called the information stage of development. And in this stage in which the developed part of the planet now lives, 1% of the country's population, for example, the US, right, who are employed in agriculture, provide food for 100% and also export this food. That is, in a short time, well, maybe not in 10 years, as Musk says, but a bit more, 1% of those working in industry, transport, and energy will be able to provide manufactured goods, logistics, and energy to 100% of the population, and maybe even more. Why? Well, because as Elon Musk correctly noted, robots and artificial intelligence as the organizer will take on the main production load. And this is not communism. I want to say this to Musk personally, like right into the air, right? Because robots will still belong to someone, to capital. That is, to those who paid for them, for these robots, who built the workshops, figured out what to produce, set up the production of this product, right? Bought the robots, laid the grids, the power grids. Someone extracted the raw materials, someone paid for its delivery, and so on. That is, all the profit for their products is still received by the corporations and their beneficiaries. They also pay taxes. Well, that is, the one who works pays taxes. How much? Well, enough so that the system doesn't fall apart, but is balanced. Ordinary, non-working people who live on basic income, they don't pay any taxes simply because, well, it would be pointless, right? Yes, I know roughly what you're thinking right now. You're right that such a society will have much higher expenses to provide everyone with a basic income. But on the other hand, such a system will have much lower expenses on the state, that is, on administering the distribution of money, pensions, benefits, scholarships, because there won't be any pensions, benefits, subsidies, social payments, and so on. There will be a single basic income from birth to death, distributed by artificial intelligence. A person is born and automatic accrual begins. As soon as they are born, an account is opened immediately. As soon as a person dies, the account is closed, the accruals stop, because all information about births and deaths immediately goes into a single system. No passport offices or passports are needed. If only because a person carries the characteristics that best identify them: fingerprints, iris, facial features, genetic profile, and so on. Today, a huge part of the budget of different countries, mostly developed ones, goes not to helping people, let's call it that, right, but to administering this help. Back in the 70s, in the 80s, Ronald Reagan, speaking, well, I don't remember where, said that in the US, every sixth working person works for the federal government, right, or for a state government, meaning they are essentially a dependent of the budget. Now, Now, today, if you count everyone who, one way or another, lives off the budget or receives payments from it, that's the state apparatus. Then private companies that fulfill government orders, right? They also live off the budget. The police, courts, prisons, army, the unemployed, single mothers. Then private construction companies on government contracts. Private medical organizations that service Medicare and Medicaid programs. And that's budget money. And they either get the lion's share or half, well, from there. Next, scientific organizations that exist on government grants. All school teachers, state pensioners, the entire military industrial complex. It's all private, of course, right? But it lives off the budget and receives money from the state through taxes for producing stealths, submarines, aircraft carriers, missiles. This is all very expensive. And overall, it turns out that from 90 to 120 million people, by various estimates in the United States, receive money from the budget to some extent. Some 100%, and some, like American farmers, receive subsidies for their seemingly market product, but it's subsidized. That is, they also partly live off the budget. And if we bring all this to a common denominator, that is, create a comparable system and compare it with the total number of working people. By the way, in the United States, from 160 to 170 million people work by various estimates. Working, right? So it turns out that already now from 60 to 70% of people, one way or another, partially or fully receive money from the budget. So we don't have that far to go to reach 100%. The army of robots will arrive and the issue will be settled. Well, there is a consolation that in such a totally digital state, in a good sense, totally, right? You can just fire a bunch of people, a bunch of officials, including from the civil service, right? They simply won't be needed. Who exactly? Well, right now, the state has to maintain tax inspectorates, then pension funds, some employment services, social protection agencies, various inspectors, accountants, auditors. That is, millions of people are busy checking other people. In our model, that is, in the robotized capitalism of the future, right, with basic income, none of this exists. There, artificial intelligence runs the entire social infrastructure, but does not make any political decisions, performing administrative and economic functions instead. In our model, that is, in the robotized capitalism of the future, right, with basic income, none of this exists. There, artificial intelligence runs the entire social infrastructure, but does not make any political decisions, performing administrative and economic functions instead. Every citizen has their own digital account from birth, as I said, right? And once a month, the system automatically transfers basic income to this account. No applications need to be written, no certificates, no queues, no decisions by an official, whether to give them or not to give them a benefit, because there are no officials. There are no checks on neediness, right? Whether a person is in need or not. You are a human. You were born here into the world, right? Very good. So join in. Here is your share of this world. You can take more if you can. And if you can't get a job or invent a job for yourself, right? That's fine too. Millions of people live like that. We are all humans. We are all people. And on all of us, working, non-working, lies the most important function: to consume, which I will talk about, well, a bit further down. Taxes in such a system are also collected automatically. The tax system is as simple as possible. Well, because the tax shifts from work to business, right? First, it's one tax on business, that is on these robotized factories, robotized warehouses, robotized logistics companies that run their automatic trucks across the country. That's the first tax. And the second tax is a local tax, a state tax, which is levied on every purchase in a store. The state, as I said, is completely digital, meaning very cheap. And its tasks do not include ensuring a person's well-being. That is not its function. It provides a person with freedom of choice for the amount it gives them. This is more important. Every company has an account. And since all payments between companies go through the banking system, which is transparent, right? The system automatically sees everything: turnover, profit, their export, import, and so on. No one fills out any declarations. Why the hell are they needed? Why are these declarations needed at all? Just to keep some premenopausal women in tax offices busy. The tax is calculated automatically and deducted automatically. And then everything collected from corporations and individual working people, say 1, 2, 3, 5% of the total population, who do receive a salary that is much higher than the basic income. Well, everything collected from them in taxes is divided proportionally. Part goes to maintaining the social infrastructure of the state, that is, well, courts, cops, prisons, and so on, and to maintaining the physical infrastructure like roads, interchanges, and so on, traffic lights. That's the first part. And the second part, the larger one, is the pool of money for basic income payments, which in turn is automatically divided among everyone living. However much people earned in the country, that's how much they received from this, well, common pool. And in such a system, everyone, practically everyone, is interested in increasing the earnings of capitalists because they live off their taxes. And the better it is for capital, the better it is for everyone. And when is it better for capital? And capital in turn is better off when people buy anything, well, goods, health insurance, plane tickets, take out a mortgage or take out a car loan or save up for it. People in such a system are separated from production. Yes, they don't produce goods. They produce, robots handle goods perfectly, right? People produce the most important thing for the economy, demand. And capitalists compete for their money. Or rather, capitalists compete with each other through the buffer of the consumer mass. Adidas competes with Nike there, and Reebok, Pepsi-Cola with Coca-Cola, Ford with Chrysler, and so on. They inject a tax from their income into the system to maintain, as I already said, right, the social and physical infrastructure, to maintain this infrastructure and demand, without which they cannot survive. And then through society, they take from the common pool by offering their products to this huge financial pool. This system works, yes, without micro-capitalists. Well, that is, without workers. I call them micro-capitalists. Right now, any working locksmith who works at a factory and voluntarily sells his labor power to an employer is a micro-capitalist. This is happening now because there are no robots. But in the future, when robots appear practically everywhere, this person will sell his consumer activity to the capitalist. Let's do it again, right? The capitalist pays you taxes so that you buy from him, but you can buy from another. This is commodity competition. Let's imagine, well, two models of society. The first model is the modern United States, 25 million officials, just government officials alone. And the United States of tomorrow, when strong artificial intelligence arrives, when robots appear everywhere, out of 25 million, say 10,000 of these officials remain. Because a digital state works like a well-written operating system with the same, no, not the same quality of management, I wanted to say, with the same quality of management. No, the quality of management will be higher because it's more transparent. They will steal less, like how Somalis are ripping off unfortunate Americans in the US right now. Somewhere in Pennsylvania, I don't remember, well, it doesn't matter. Well, in a transparent system, you can't really mess around. It turns out that the state of tomorrow, with better management, will spend less money on its own maintenance. If we fire this huge 25 million mass of employees, bureaucrats, essentially, we can save on their salaries and social packages and limit them to just basic income. Monetize the social package, as they say. And then let a person buy their own health insurance from their basic income, if they want. Or save up for a car, as I already said, right? Or take out a mortgage loan from a bank. If this money is not enough for you, if you want to live better, look for a job or invent a job for yourself, and then draw money from the common pool. Notice a very important thing. Babies, adults, the elderly, and youth, well, they all get the same amount of basic income here. And since a baby eats little, right, but gets as much as an adult, this is an incentive to have children. And the elderly aren't left out either. Their income in old age is no less than what they always received. What is left for people? What jobs? Well, people are left with courts, police, dog grooming, and other things that robots won't be capable of for a long time, right? Like dog grooming. A dog might not let this robot do it. Or in these positions, robots will be less preferred than people, because a person needs a person. If you need to talk to a hairdresser about children and grandchildren, about your children and grandchildren, about his children and grandchildren, you will go to a familiar person, not to a robot, even if it can cut hair, right? You won't go to a robot that parted your hair in the wrong place last time. Talking to a robot is not interesting because it has no interests, it has no children, it has no dog. That is, well, automatically this state apparatus, the digital one I am describing. It works not as the boss of society, not as an educator, not as a benefactor who can give you a benefit or not give you a benefit. And this is good because it's even, I would say, a fundamental innovation, because bureaucracy in such a society loses power in this system, right? And socialism is precisely the power of bureaucrats, or rather the partiocracy, the nomenclatura. And communism is generally a totalitarian prison where there is only a ration and a uniform, right? And Big Brother who distributes everything. As Grandpa Lenin said, socialism is accounting and control. But here everything is transparent. Taxes are collected automatically. Basic income drops into everyone's account automatically. You can't be infringed upon. Licenses, if anyone needs licenses at all, are issued automatically. Well, property registration happens automatically. You vote in elections. On your smartphone on voting day, a window pops up. You can click, find out the issues, read, or they will tell you about the candidates. The system counts the votes. Artificial intelligence also automatically, and everything is done absolutely transparently. An official in such a system is an exception, not the rule. Patriots are not needed in such a system either. There is nothing to fight for, because such a system, well, in a century, say, or half a century, after its beginning, will spread across the entire globe, especially considering the demographic collapse, which I'll say a couple more words about below. So the Earth turns out to be not unipolar and not monopolar in such a political layout, right? But polymonopolar. I've already talked about this too, and I won't dwell on the political part. I will only say that here, there is one digital system of a common state and a multitude of local autonomies. It turns out that we have, well, the main, as I already said, right? Again, a bit above, a bit earlier, a bit only about this turn, so there is one digital system of a common state and a multitude of local autonomies. It turns out that we have, well, the main, as I already said, right? Again, a bit above, a bit earlier, a bit above is what I say out of habit as a writer, right? As a speaker, I should say a bit earlier. So our tax burden, our tax base shifts from salaries to profit and consumption, because a local tax for, well, sandboxes and curbs is deducted from every transaction. Capital, that is private entrepreneurs, that is the people themselves, right, or their associations, are engaged in the production of goods, services, food. If you want, try, take a loan. If you don't want, don't try, live on basic income. But the main mass of people, non-working people, generate what capitalists need so much, consumption. Without consumption, capitalism is dead. Society is dead without consumption. Civilization cannot exist without the consumer of this civilization. And since people have what capitalists need, capitalists are forced to buy this from people, their consuming capacity. It is precisely for this, not for working at the factory anymore, right? But for the opportunity to want to buy their products, that manufacturers will pay people a basic income from their tax deductions. Because without the consumer, there is simply no reason to produce. If you are a capitalist and want to produce to live well, right? Well, that is better than others. Produce, pay tax for the reproduction of consumers that you need. These consumers to live better than them. That is the essence of this new capitalism. It is the same exchange, well, like the market exchange we are used to, when a person earns money and exchanges it for goods or services. Only now you don't need to earn money. That's the only difference. Production has separated from consumption. You don't need to work anymore, but you can if you want to live better, right? Basic income is not socialism. Basic income is capitalism 2.0, or rather 3.0, right? Third generation capitalism, if we count industrialism as first generation capitalism, right? The industrial revolution and post-industrialism. Well, the information society can be considered the second generation. That very society of the future, which Elon Musk predicts in 10 years will be precisely capitalism 3.2, capitalism, and not when money disappears, which is communism. In the new system, it turns out that we stop building the state around poverty. We abolish the very concept of the welfare state. We introduce the concept of a free country. Today, almost the entire social system answers the question, whom to help? This is the welfare state, right? This is a goal of survival, and this is a path of stagnation. The new system answers a completely different question, how to provide every person with starting economic freedom. This is a much more universal goal. This is already a goal of development, yes. The main task of the state of the future is maintaining and increasing demand. And only people can create demand. Cabinets with video cards won't do it. Even, that is, computers, right? Even if they came up with a good commercial name for this computer, artificial intelligence. And robots won't provide demand because a robot doesn't need beer, dried fish, football, condoms, TV shows. The robot's task is to work. The human's task is to consume. Yes, a human can also work, stand at a machine, well, or on an assembly line. But that's not the main thing about them. The main thing that distinguishes a human from a machine is that they always want something, yes. So much so that in former times, they were even ready to work for it. That is the main property of a human. If there are robots, if there are a few working people, from 1 to 5% in society, right? If there is artificial intelligence that creates a single digital ocean, then we actually don't need anything else. Remember, in the Soviet Union, there was this nonsense. Hereditary grain grower, hereditary steel worker, hereditary miner, hereditary member of the Central Committee. Honor and respect to the working man, and we will have an honored consumer, hereditary. The task of the society of the future is to help produce goods with their demand for them. You produced consumption. Consider that you produced a product. Well done. Thanks to you, it appeared. You produced children. You produced consumers. That is, you increased production, developed the economy. Well done. Here is your badge of honor and the order of the non-labor red banner. So you might ask, well, is this even possible? Does the money add up or not? And this is where it gets interesting. I also asked myself this question, and we, well, with AE, or rather AE under our close guidance, artificial intelligence, made a mathematical model of such a society. And if you are interested in this topic at all, write, and next time I will tell you if there will be enough funds in such a system to balance it. Spoiler, there will be. So we did quite a lot of work with artificial intelligence on this. Well, at first he didn't believe me, as is always the case, right? Then I gave him a direction, told him which taxes to abolish, well, which functions to remove from the state apparatus, to take into account the fact that the wage share in the cost of production is shrinking. And by the way, in the modern world, it reaches from 30 to 60% in different products. That is, all goods become sharply cheaper due to firing workers, people in general. Plus, productivity grows. So due to this, goods also become cheaper. Well, according to all these tasks of mine, right? According to my inputs, artificial intelligence made a math model. Then I asked him to take into account the demographic collapse we are living in. Well, and it turned out that basic income solves this problem too, because a small number of working people no longer need to feed. A small number of working people no longer need to feed a growing share of pensioners, because firstly, there are no pensioners anymore. Secondly, practically no one works anymore. And with an equal basic income, it no longer matters whether you are a pensioner or a baby. This problem is removed. There even arise interesting paradoxes, which I will tell you about next time probably, right? If you are interested. New paradoxes arise, new goals for society. But in general, looking ahead, I will say that in theory, yes, everything works. Everything is heading that way. Even ask, calculate, well, the US national debt problem, which stems from political reasons, economic reasons, and there it also partly gets some resolution. It will be a beautiful world. It will be a beautiful world. Too bad neither you nor I will get to live in this beautiful time. Nekrasov wrote. And he would probably even cry if he listened to this video of mine about the unrestrained happiness of robotized capitalism with monetized freedom, digital transparency. Glory to entrepreneurs, the engines of progress.